Well, hi everyone. So I'm going to record this one in English. What I want to talk about is why I decided, because I was actually asked today, and yeah, within a like a week or so, it was probably the fourth time I believe that I had to break down, from beginning to end, and trying to put it in a nutshell, which the longest version was about an hour or so, when I actually explained, like how I ended up in this situation, starting, with the it's actually so bloody easy. When you just say this much, that I grew up in a cult and everybody immediately knows what it is. So I can only, how should I put it, recommend it to other people who grew up just like myself, who grew up in faith church, and have to explain, themselves, why they are so messed up, and what happened, and what basically hijacked, and or basically just ruined, their life. You can just say that I grew up in a cult, and most people will say like, oh, okay, all right, that makes sense. Because like two things: one, everybody knows, how these cults are, and what are the main characteristics. Like this, you know, there is always this number one guy, alpha male, who is like beyond scrutiny, and nobody can, question, him. There's always that one, and obviously the money, that everybody has to contribute, like regularly. Yeah, and then there is you have to obey, and then they turn your family members against you, and they weaponize your friends and family against you in case you start voicing your concerns or even criticism. That is one thing. And the other thing is, like, everybody knows someone, not everybody, but a lot of people know someone who also grew up in a cult, or heard about someone, and they share, like a lot of the same characteristics, meaning that they're messed up. And there is a person, yeah, there's a side of their personality which never grew up, just to call a spade, really. So, anyways, yeah, I just had to break it down a few times in the past week or so, and it's very interesting because, like, all these quote unquote authorities, they do everything in their power, almost, not everything, but they do quite a lot, and they do a really good job to make you want to do yourself in, but they just want to make sure that you only just don't do it. Yeah, so that is my experience, because they do a bloody good job, like just pushing you so badly, that you actually want out. You just say that, like, how much can I take? How much more can I take? And then, yeah, and then, really have to be careful not to say that, not to, like, ask for any help, like, in that regard, in that, because if you dare say, if you like, not careful enough, and you say that, something along the lines that, you want to do yourself in, or whatever, that I can't, if you say that you cannot take it anymore or something like that, then they're coming for you to lock you up, and probably put you on drugs or whatever, just to lock you away somewhere, like a lunatic. Yeah. So, yeah, 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 that's how it is. So they do everything to make you lose your mind, you know, and then, but, you cannot say, that I'm actually, yeah. So you have to kind of like stay, in this very narrow path, between, like almost going, like insane. Yeah. Anyways, because, like, like, if you're a normal, sane person, it's very difficult not to go insane when you see how the world, really works, how ruthless, and how cynical, and how it's like, how heartless, should I say? It's not a good word, but anyways, the whole system, is, should I say? It's like, it's not easy. It's not easy to actually see, it's it in its true colors. So, anyways, where was I again? Sorry, I just hatched, some chicks. They're still hatching, and then it's very interesting because when this whole thing, first happened, like approximately 2 months ago. Now it's more than 2 months ago. Yeah, exactly that time I had small chicks, uh, uh, hatching, and I think that was one of the things that kept me going, because you just feel, this kind of like this responsibility, that, well, I was the one who, you know, and that's the thing, really, and right now I am, at the same place. Today, as usual, I had these break and a few of these breakdowns, but now I kind of like I don't freak out, when they happen anymore. So I just break down. I start sobbing. I oftentimes I just like stumble and fall, and just my muscles just don't want to kind of like obey me, and they just like fall, like down on the ground, and they just cannot get up, and I start like crying, and it's very very difficult because like it's some sort of a weird, like kind of like it comes in waves, like it's there is an element of self pity in it, an element of sorry, for my kids, and what, how they might experience this whole thing, especially knowing that they were fighting, like I said before, just before my, like, anyways. So before this whole thing happened, every night they were fighting that who would sleep on my chest, and I had to break it down to them that you guys can sleep on my chest at the same time if you kind of like, if you were, like, torso is perpendicular to mine, and then you can, put your heads, both, on my chest at the same time. It's okay, and you can do that, because they were competing. That's how close my kids are to me. Yeah. And I have, and my wife betrays me. Yeah. And then she just unilaterally takes the kids, and then I figure out and realize, you know, and not only, like, basically everybody turned against me, almost everybody turned against me, and I'm treated like a leper pretty much. Oh, and also, no, I mean, it's like the difficult part is the most difficult part about the whole thing is, that I know how short-sighted, like my wife is, just like most women, under such circumstances, in general as well. But it's like it. She can be so. I'm really sorry for saying this. She can be so ridiculously stupid, when it comes to, uh, these things. That it's absolutely, she is her own worst enemy. It's very difficult to comprehend. Like how how much she messes everything up. It's absolutely mind blowing. So it's very very difficult to relate to, as a man, like, who more or less, you try to think rationally as much as possible. It has happened so many times. So everything that happened to us could have been avoided so many times, so many times. There was always, this why, like forks, where the we could have taken another route, and then we wouldn't have. But then there still was another, like fork in the road where we could have taken the other route, and we didn't, obviously, because, like, Mrs. wanted to go that way, and that's where we are now. And that's the most one of the most difficult, like, or probably the most difficult about the whole situation. Now, the most difficult one is, that I bloody miss my kids, obviously. And the second one would be, probably, the whole police, like, part of the whole thing. It was a shocking experience. I've never been, like, in this situation before, Well, back in Hungary, I was, but that wasn't anywhere near, like, as shocking, because that was my decision. Because my stupid friend, back then, anyways, he was begging me to come back, and that's a whole different story. And I probably knew what was going to happen. And the following day, he was all cocky and everything and all that, you know. That was my only time with, anyways. But this time, it was especially when they took me to the police station, and I heard, like what they told about me, and I heard about, what my wife, like apparently, said, the sequence of, events, and it was like, goodness me, because there was, okay, maybe I shouldn't say this, but it wasn't entirely true. Let me just put it this way. So things didn't happen, exactly the way, like she said they happened. So I could already tell that she knew that she messed up herself. So she was trying to cover her back. Okay. So, yeah, that is one thing. The other thing is what was really, really shocking to me, that I put the pieces together, obviously, that it was her brother, like who reported me to police. And yeah, her brother, like everybody knows, in her family, that her brother is not the sharpest, like knife in the drawer. You like, not necessarily. I'm not necessarily saying that he's stupid or anything. It's just like mentally there is something wrong. There is something very, very weird, with that guy. Like he doesn't seem to comprehend, like some absolutely. You break it down to him from so many angles, some concept, and he just doesn't understand. Something is wrong. Something is not. Something is missing. From a cogwheel is missing. So much so, that just before this thing happened, like he was sending me all these weird messages, and at the, like I normally can deal, I normally can relate to difficult people, and I can kind of like, how should I put it? I can navigate my way, like with really, really difficult people most of the time. I can diffuse situations, more or less. I'm not saying that I'm the best at it, but because oftentimes, it really baffles me, and I'm left with, totally gobsmacked, and often sometimes traumatized, because I kind of like internalize, all what shouldn't have been, I should have, been more assertive, and oftentimes it takes a toll on me. But back to the point, the guy was accusing me with things which took place several years back, and he took all these things out of context so badly, that he didn't even know, he didn't understand. Like he was holding against me, just this one thing, for example, he was holding against me, that I don't want my kids to go to school. And obviously the idiot, I'm sorry, he doesn't, understand and appreciate that in the United Kingdom it's even legal. It's not just lawful, it's absolutely legal. Even the legislation, allows kids to be home educated, homeschooled. And by and like how do they say it, like by and large, anyways. So basically, the normal educational system, especially in the higher grades, it's an absolute disaster, and everybody knows that. Like teachers are overwhelmed. They are obviously forbidden to discipline the kids. It's the whole setup is not ideal. When the kids are really, really small, it's a bit okay, it's fun and everything, and it's like, but later on it gets really, really bad, and most kids, learn all the nasty stuff from each other at school. And home educated kids, like outperform, their peers, who go to, like state-run schools in every area generally. And they are more polite, they are more social, um, they are better behaved, and they are more and there is how should I put it, their mental health is better. Yeah, so anyways, but this thing, he was, this genius, like he was holding that against me, and a lot of other things, which if you take it out of context, you can say that, wow, that is a bit weird and everything. But if you know the whole context, it's not only perfectly fine, it actually shows, that I am a very well informed, like father. I'm sorry. And that I actually take, the well-being of my kids, very, very seriously. And that's the reason why I chose to do these things. And not just me, but actually my wife, we were on the same page about these things. Anyways, so back to the main question. So yeah, um like I said before, like it's very interesting because when they took me to the police station, these geniuses, like the sergeant, the police station, like asked, one of the guys who arrested me, like, is he, is there any, what is it called? Basically, the idea was, the question was, is he a threat to himself? Would he harm himself? And the guy said no. Yeah. And that was after, I made a public video in which I said goodbye to everyone and showed a bottle of, of what was it again? Coolant. And I told about the super sharp blade as well. And that was after that. You see? That's how that is how brilliant the British police force like is in their investigation, and they made an awful lot of other stupid mistakes. Like, I run a YouTube channel, right? But it's strangely enough, when after during the interrogation afterwards, the following day, they were asking me some really interesting questions, like, do you have a YouTube channel? Are you talking on this YouTube channel? Are you talking about that women should obey, wives should obey their husbands, just like that? You see, I'm not kidding you. That's what they asked me at the police station, right? And they asked all sorts of very different, very weird questions. Just like when they took our baby from us, right? They asked us, all sorts of questions, like questions that if I ask anybody anywhere in any setting, and if they had reported, I could get into jail. Like, they were asking about our religion, yeah. They were pushing us, yeah. And what made us, quote unquote anti-vaxxers, and they were demanding things which are not even legal. I mean, you don't have to. You don't have to do it. They actually demanded us to register our children with the local GP. It's not even lawfully mandated. It's not obligatory or mandatory. It's not. Yet, because they hijacked, because they kidnapped our baby, yeah, they just, they wanted us to do all these things, yeah. And now my wife goes to the same organization who did all this to us, who has been persecuting us, who have what is it called, ambushed us. That's the legal term, that ambushed us, quite literally and legally as well. And they have been absolutely nasty. And if anybody was coercive and controlling in this behaved in a coercive and controlling manner, it was them. And now my wife went and made an agreement, and quote unquote agreement, with them, right? And then they sent me an email, right, in which they said that for the safety of the children or whatever, basically implying or saying that to keep the children away from me because I'm the one like who is a threat to the children according to them, right? They are the ones, and they are the ones who use the use police. They sent a police riot van, took our baby, and vaccinated him against our will. Yeah. And I'm the one who is a coercive and controlling person. That is the allegation. And my wife like made a quote unquote agreement, which is absolutely unlawful. Obviously, you cannot do that, and they were asking for my opinion, yeah. And then this woman, like she, when I finally, after a few weeks, I mustered up enough mental resources to actually answer this email, right? And then I got back an automatic reply that I'm on annual leave, but if you have any issues and problems, and it's really tricky because it's not straightforward. The whole thing is not necessarily straightforward, because I already experienced it at the court and everything, that these people have use like they want you to, they basically drag you into a court, into a game, like a tennis court, in a game where the rules of which you do not know, right? And then they use it against you. If you are not lawfully trained or legally trained, you actually should be lawfully trained. If you're not, they can just do whatever they want with you, and seriously. That's why you need like solicitors, like lawyers and everything. But if they taught this at school, for example, what your rights are, for example, there wouldn't be any need for any lawyers, really. The only reason why there is need for them, because they make up rules which are not self-evident and not self-explanatory, right? And yeah, and they trick you, into, that is what they are trying to do, accepting. They try to trick you to accept them, and you really have to be on your guard, if you do not want to accept them, and it's a whole new can of, worms, really. It's not, it's anyways. So like I said, when that happened, when this whole thing happened, and I learned about, as a courtesy of my half-wit, like brother-in-law, back in Africa, yeah. I don't consider him my brother-in-law anymore. Just like I'm not really sure what to think about, my wife, really. What I know is that she's the mother of my children. But a wife doesn't do this, to her husband. I mean, this is the most evil thing that anybody has ever done to me. This was pure evil. It could have been worse, actually. She herself could have, reported me to police, which she didn't do, and that's the only positive thing I can see in the whole picture, really. That's the only thing that is not. But the thing is that she already, like laid the minefield before, by saying all these things, these things that she held against me before, yeah, which ultimately turned out to be actually advantageous, and benevolent. All these things, that I was trying to do for my family, yeah. Yeah, but these people don't know it, yeah, because my wife never, went back to them and told them, apparently, that, yeah, David actually was right when he, you know, said that we shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that. And actually, you know, most of these things we were on the same page. Most of these things. The only thing I think, that my wife was consistently unhappy about is that I hoard up too much stuff. That's it, really. Yeah, and I agreed with her, that, yeah, I probably, yeah, do. So, yeah, I wanted to downsize and everything. Yeah, I even told her, that you sit down with the kids, just pick out with the toys that you guys they want to keep, and they tell you which are the toys that they want to keep and which are the ones that we should take to charity, and then I will take them there, And so anyways, like what happened here, I'm telling you, like it was, and it still is. It is super super hard. I'm telling you, it's like we are talking about 8 bloody years, like running from these bloody horrible, horrible people. Yeah, narcissistic, abusive, social workers, and absolutely sociopathic, NHS stuff, and running from them from 8 straight years, and then, and which culminates, them, taking our few-day-old baby with the police riot van after my wife is physically assaulted in the hospital, because that's what they did to her. They actually grabbed her and took her back in her room, and she lawfully wanted to, legally as well, she wanted to check herself out of the hospital, and then they put a security guard in front of the door, the whole hospital ward, and they banned me in my absence and never even bothered to tell me. And I'm not the only one. That is one of the worst hospitals in the whole of the UK, I believe. One of the most modern ones, and the most tyrannical and ruthless ones. Hey, goodness me. It was like, it's a proper, like I told it before, even, when we had these experiences in the hospital, it's a very weird combination of five-star hotel and a concentration camp. The way you're treated, in these hospitals. So there is a lot to be done. Seriously. And then this idiot, the brother of my wife, would say that, he was basically just before this thing happened, that police, made their way, broke into our house again, into our home. He was accusing me. I was accused from every bloody direction. Just imagine that everybody, is either is accusing you, or distancing themselves, from you, and don't want to talk to you. So it's no wonder, obviously. And then the same thing happens, the whole thing repeats itself. And it was like again, I have been through stuff, but this was by far the worst, by far the worst, like betrayal that ever happened to me. And then, so obviously I wanted out, I was like, I cannot go through this again, you know, I cannot, I was like, I cannot go through this again. And I genuinely don't know where I get, the mental, it's probably people, like praying for me, because otherwise, like the difference is that back, when I wanted to do it, it was like, kind of like the pain, and and so basically uh, the emotions, and the pain and the rational, and the thinking, the logical rational thinking, they were kind of like intertwined. There wasn't much of a distance between them, because it just, like my thoughts and my emotions, they went hand in hand, and they told me that it would be better to get out. Seriously, because you won't be able to deal with this type of pain. You won't be able to cope with it. But now it's more like, it's kind of like I can differentiate, between the two. Like I can tell that it is my emotions, and my internal mental kind of like movie theater, is the one, that wants me to push in that direction. But I always remember, like there are hundreds of thousands of fathers all around the world who have been betrayed by their wives, like just like me. And it's and it is the worst type of, like psychological pain. And I don't think I deserve this. I have to be honest, I don't think. I cannot find anything, that I did. It's like, and I hope I'm not being narcissistic, and what is it called when I say that, because like I was fighting for these kids, and obviously the problem is, that when here and there I made a bad decision, it oftentimes it was the result, or not necessarily fully, but at least partially, the result of my wife being so bloody stubborn, and that she grinded me down so badly that I just didn't have enough mental resources at that time to think straight, and to kind of like put up a fight. Because when you have to fight your wife continually, and you have to walk on eggshells, and you always have to consider what she might or might not say, and how she might or might not criticize, you know and put up, like resistance, it's very, very difficult to fight this, like what is it called, like a two front battle, a two front war. It's very, very difficult to do. Ask Hitler. So it's really difficult. Or Napoleon. Was Napoleon doing that? I'm not sure, but Hitler definitely was. Anyways, so basically the reason why I do not want to do it now, and the reason why I'm not going to do it, because I'm telling you, even now, that would be easiest. I'm telling you, by far, by a massive margin, it would be much easier than anything else. Let me just, like just look around and see. All right. So I've got two absolutely messed up places, right? One is where we were supposed to move out, and it's absolutely messed up. The garden is so overgrown with weed and everything, like that. It has never been like that before. And it has been like that, for almost 2 years by now. Not this bad, but when that happened, what happened, I was continually improving, the garden. I was building things, I was clearing, stuff out. I was dealing with the hedge and everything. I did all sorts of things. I removed, tree stumps. I was leveling the ground. I put up a shed. I put up another, which was, already. I just had to put it together, and I built another one. and it was quite a tricky one because I didn't really have any resources. So, and I only had a roof ready, so I had to raise the roof, first. And it was really really clever, like thing what I did, but then it just the whole thing just anyways. It was an insulated roof, that had an irrigation pipe coiled up in it to generate hot water, and I covered it with a thick, transparent plastic, a sheet, so kids could actually walk on top of it. At this, and it was shatterproof, and at the same time, underneath, hot water was generated. All right, so that's what I built. Okay. Obviously, I didn't fully know what I was doing, so there was a few things, which I didn't factor in and everything, but I could have dealt with those things and all that, and on the go, you know, just like what I'm doing now. I actually built another one now, but I just built it on the floor. It's the same idea, like a hot water generator, irrigation, hose pipe, or pipe, I should say, and then it's coiled up and everything. And I removed it for now because I double glazed it, quote unquote, with greenhouse. This, what is it called? This greenhouse. Is it called foil? It's not called foil. I don't know what it is called. Anyways, these plastic sheets. This plastic, not wrap. What do you call these things? I have no idea. But it's rolled up. It's transparent plastic, whatever. Anyways, so I did it twice, to give a better insulation. And then in the middle, there will be what is it called? A photovoltaic, like, what is it called? Solar panel. So yeah, it's really clever and everything. So I was building stuff and all that, but when that happens, it just throws you off balance, and it just kind of like, yeah, that's exactly what happened to us. Anyways, where did I get, how did I end up here? I have no idea. But anyways, yeah. So the only reason why I because like I said, they asked me even today, because they immediately want to know. So you're not planning to do it now. You're not going to do it today, blah blah blah. It's like, no, I'm not, you idiot. I know where you're getting at, what you're getting at. I know where you're going with it, with this. I'm not committing suicide. All right, no. But again, it would be the easiest by far. Now, why am I not doing it then? And that's what I want to address now, because I have a more or less clear, like, understanding what would happen with our kids after, right? And I know, like, it's just, like, it has been proven, so many times, you know like, if I did myself in, what would that prove? Something that has been proven, over and over for decades by now. Yeah, when you ruin your husband because you are being a rebellious witch, yeah, things will go wrong. Yeah, that's it. It has been, proven, like, so many times. So many, like, husbands, did themselves in when, what their wives, when their wives, did what my wife, did to me. Nothing new. So how would that help? It wouldn't help, probably. I would be just another number, among, hundreds of thousands of husbands and fathers who got ruined by a rebellious, stubborn, selfish, woman. And so there's no point, obviously. But what is more important, that I know my kids really well, and I know their strengths and I know their weaknesses, especially the two older ones, because the third one, is not old enough yet, so I only can see his good sides, really, because I haven't really seen anything bad, because, like, he's still very young. And goodness me, I haven't seen them for 2 bloody months. Goodness me. That is the bloody amazing thing about it. It was so bloody hard, that 1 month when we could even see our baby, like twice or three times a week, and that was painful. That was bloody painful. That was horrible. That was horrible. Up until this time, that was the hardest time of my life. Thank you so very much, social services. Thank you so very much. Yeah, it's absolutely, absolutely. And these, oh, goodness me, so these people are so narcissistic. It's like I'm telling you, like social workers are either, the reason why they're, what is it called, recruited, is because they already are sociopaths or psychopaths, or they become, these ones after they are recruited to work for social services. I'm telling you, like the way they behave, the way they kind of like intimidate you, and the way they like demand things of you, as if they were your masters, and if they were like masters of life and death. And obviously, any, like normal, like father or mother, when they see that, they immediately go kind of like hostile. It's like what, just take a step back. Why do you think that you have the right to interfere with, with my offspring? All right, why would you think that? And then they, like, what is it called, and then they, make the note, that you are being aggressive, and you are being and that you are intimidating them and threatening them and all that, blah blah blah. So they make all these notes. So in the system, of what, like NHS, social services, the police, and family court, and in our case, even the high court, they know exactly these keywords. They know exactly how to deal with you and how to teach you a lesson, because they use these keywords about which you have no idea. You don't even know, their internal communication. Yeah. And in our case, they didn't even, give us the charges. They didn't give it to us, and we had to show up at court without having the actual charges. We didn't even know what was in there. That was absolutely against the law. Absolutely. And yet they did it. And up until now, they got away with it. So I have a relatively good understanding, what would happen to my kids, like how they would grow up if I did myself in. And that's the main reason why I don't. But I'm telling you guys, like, that's the only thing that keeps me alive, really. That's the only thing that keeps me alive, because it was my selfish, decision to bring these kids into this world. And I love them. And I love them a lot. But if I had known what I know today, I wouldn't have exposed them, to what is going on in the world. But they are here, and and they deserve to be treated. You know, they deserve well, and they deserve to be exposed the best. What the world can offer, obviously, and they obviously have to face, because they will face, the ugly as well, and because they will meet malevolence, because everybody meets malevolence. But I want to prepare them, and when that happens, they know how to deal with it, and they know how to overcome, evil, with good, whenever you can, whenever possible. um and I want to make sure that they know, that their father, loves them, and I could make myself, I could make a hero out of myself, so they can be proud of me. But how does that help? How does that help? How does that help them? And I don't care about, my wife's family. I don't care my own ex family. I know that they would be gloating. They would be happy. They would love it. And especially these church people, where they abuse my son. Yeah, they would love it, if I did myself in. They would absolutely love it. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. He was no good, like, yeah, you need a better, like, all that. because they are witches. They are rebellious Jezebels, witches, horrible, 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 rebellious, like Bible denying, people. It's a den of witches, a coven of witches. Is it coven or coven? I'm not really sure. So how would that help? It wouldn't help at all. I know that my kids, still could be proud of me, but at the same time they would feel, resentful about, what I, because, it would take, for them, they would have to go through the same thing to actually understand and appreciate the level of pain I'm experiencing and I have been experiencing, and they probably wouldn't have they wouldn't understand, that it is not something, when you have been persecuted by the quote unquote authorities for 8 years, and you have been basically fleeing from place to place. And it was only a handful of friends who actually helped you, um, with no strings attached. Because most people helped you. I mean, a lot of people helped us, but the majority of them helped, with kind of like it was a they either expected something in return, or yeah, that's the easiest way of putting it. So it was really, really tough, very, very tough. So basically, I lost all friends, I lost all family, and this was the only thing that I had. I had my wife and my wife's, family, her side of the family, and my kids. That's it. And a handful of friends, back from Hungary, and that's it. And I had this church, but I knew that, these people are as nice as they are, they are like by the book, and conforming, never ever daring to rock the boat in any way, in any sense of the word. It's like kind of like indoctrinated pseudo Christians, churchianity people. So I knew that, like when I explained it to them, like how bad our situation was, and we really would love to go to Africa. And I know that for these people, they should only have, like they could have reached out, you know, and just, say that, okay, there is this couple, they have been at the receiving end, and all that, like, but it just doesn't fit with them, and they could have, like organized, like whatever, fundraising, and very easily they could have, like finance, air tickets to Africa, and then this whole thing wouldn't have happened. But no, they just wanted to parade my family in their church because they're beautiful kids and everything, obviously. And there are very few, young people, with small kids, in these churches, because most of the time it's old, single women, most of them. I'm sorry. And there are some, every now and then you see some old couples, like where the husband has been totally tamed, emasculated, and domesticated, and then, basically you very rarely see some old school couples, where you actually can see that the husband actually is still like a man, an actual man. Anyways, it's pathetic, when you look at, these people who show up in these churches, it's pathetic, wherever you go, when you see the average, kind of like, well, it's full of single mothers to begin with. The majority of the of these, for example, the African people are in there. I would say probably the majority of them are single mothers working for the NHS. And that is the occasional, like traditional African family, where they are still together. Yeah, they are both working most of the time. Yeah, and the kids, they are very proud of themselves, that they put the kids, into the school system where they get indoctrinated, that. And it's like, and they're still trying to become like British, and that's the thing, and then they post, like photos on Facebook and everything, how they are, prospering, and everything in the United Kingdom, everything, everybody in, back in Africa, they are super jealous, of them. Where while at, at the same time, they don't really have an actual life here. They are just, because they work their asses off, really. So because they are obviously they're first generation immigrants, and they have nothing, so they have to basically, they are on all sorts of, you know child benefit and housing benefit and all sorts of other things. And sometimes, some of them are actually quite successful, and yeah, sometimes. But yeah, the number of single black African mothers in these churches is absolutely alarming, actually. Yeah, and that's the thing, like women are like that, they always, they always like there's always this program running in their heads, like how can I get the most out of this situation? It's like how can I utilize, how can I get a leverage, how can I use this to my advantage, and everything. And they don't perceive that what they oftentimes consider an advantage, it's actually they are just digging their own grave, pretty much. And unfortunately, most of the time, it's not just their own grave. They're taking, the next generation with them. It's like, yeah, it's like, it's not good for kids to grow up in a single, like mother home, unfortunately. And I know exactly how my kids would, not exactly, but I have a basic understanding how my kids would end up. And I don't even want to say, because I know their strength and I know their weaknesses. And I know that they need a father, and they need their real, actual father, who happens to be me. Not because I'm such an amazing, like human being or whatever. It is because I have learned my lessons. I'm not saying all of them, but I learned a lot of lessons, and I actually do have quite a lot of experience, in childcare. I'm one of, seven siblings, and I'm the oldest. I looked after children professionally. I was like a personal tutor, for grown-ups and for children as well, all sorts of age groups. So, and I actually proved myself, with these kids, that I can look after them, I can educate them. I did it. I have been doing it, and everybody knows that, who knows us. That I've been taking them out, I've been showing them stuff. I have been exposing them to nature, and I've been looking after them, and I have a very good understanding what is safe and what is not safe and all that. And it's like, I'm sorry, a mother cannot do that, because mothers are overprotective, and they're very, very short-sighted, and that is the reason why most kids who grew up in a black single mother family, they end up being criminals or druggies or both. or something really, or else, but not good. It's definitely not good. It's not good. Kids, especially boys, they need a role model, and they need a structure. They need to be taught responsibility, and what is it called? That there are consequences to their actions. So they have to learn that. So they have to learn that there are some actual, that there is such a thing as good and bad, right and wrong. And they have to learn the difference between them. And unfortunately, boys can play their mothers like a fiddle. They can just play them. And that's the reason why most of the time, when it turns out that, let's say, there was a serial killer, and oftentimes their mother had no idea, no idea. He has always been such a good boy. I don't understand how it could have happened. How did it happen? It's like that's how it always is. They have no idea. Because women, in general, they don't see the long-term consequences of their actions. And because of that, they absolutely suck at strategic thinking. And that's why they overthink, but they never can get it right. And that's why They always, I mean, in the overwhelming majority of the cases, they are the ones who initiate a divorce. Yeah. If they could think strategically, they wouldn't marry someone whom they later want to divorce. Yeah. But they want, this right, yeah, of wanting to make their own decisions, which they will later regret. And then, but by that time, there will be a lot of other people involved who don't deserve this, who do not deserve this, and they never gave, any reason to be exposed this kind of female narcissism. What these women, in these situations, display when they so decide, they decide that, oh, okay, I've had enough, I don't like it anymore. You know what? I'm walking away. Yeah, maybe shouldn't have, gotten married. If you cannot deal with the bloody consequences, maybe you shouldn't have, like promised either explicitly or implicitly what you promised to your soon-to-be husband. Maybe you just misled him. Maybe you just deceived him, because maybe you have been an absolutely horrible person. Maybe that's what you did, and you will never admit it to yourself, because you will always, just like most women, you will always dodge responsibility. And when you sit down, to talk with your friends, with your female friends, you will convince each other that, oh, you haven't done nothing wrong, he was no good, and what you have done is perfectly justified. Yeah? And you will lie to each other. And deep down, you know that you became a monster. But because all your friends who are also either divorced or God only knows how many lives they already ruined, how many males they have ruined. Yeah? Because these friends of yours, yeah, tell you, that there's nothing wrong with what you have done. Yeah? You will take it and run with it. It has been generations by now, generation after generation, that it has been proven. It is the same exact pattern that took place in the Garden of Eden. The same exact thing. The same exact thing. There's the serpent. He beguiles, the female, and the female takes the whole project down the drains. And death, pain, and suffering ensues. And women just don't want to learn. They just don't want to learn. And that's exactly what my wife was avoiding like the plague. She didn't want to. She promised it, and then she backtracked on it, and she didn't want to read, the relevant scriptures. If we had, and strangely enough, yeah, when, they took the baby, from us, then suddenly she was willing to, to sit down with me and to study these scriptures. Obviously, we hardly even, started it. Yeah. And then she, due to some strange reason, right? She was willing to put on a head covering. Not once before, never before. Not once. Although it is explicitly in the Bible that when a woman prays or prophesies, she should put on a head covering, a headscarf. Yeah. It's in the Bible, and she refused it. Yeah. But when they took the baby, suddenly, somehow, she found something, she found herself, she found the willingness in herself, and the capacity in herself to put on that bloody head covering. But only then, not before and not since. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting. I don't know. I have no idea, what is going to come out of this. I genuinely have no idea. I've never felt in my life, this absolutely alienated from my own, life. my own self, really. I'm telling you, it's like I'm dead, inside, in a way. Because you just cannot, you cannot go through what I have been through and kind of like stay okay, stay fine. It's impossible. It's impossible. My wife murdered me. She killed me. She killed something in me who actually was me, probably. I'm not myself anymore. I'm only keeping it together because I know that I have a responsibility towards my children, towards my two sons and my daughter. And that's it. If I had known that my wife will put me through this and that she was going to be this stubborn and this deceitful, I would have never married her. Never, never, never. I would have run away screaming. But now we have these children, and I'm deeply grateful for them. But again, and I don't want them to take this the wrong way. But if I had known, if I could, if even now, if I could rewind time, so much so that I myself and they would never know about it. Yeah, that I never experienced, fatherhood. Yeah, never. And they kind of like, maybe I don't know how it works really, but maybe they are born to someone else or something, and not me. And I do not experience, how it feels, to be a father to these small kids, these lovely, lovely, original, beautiful, real, like I don't even know the right word, just beings, creations, so to speak. I'm not using the word creatures because like it's not the right word here. You know, I would say let's undo the whole thing, and let's erase it from my memory, from my consciousness. But they're here, and we cannot undo it, you know, obviously. They're here, and they are my responsibility. I made a selfish decision, just like my ex colleague, like from Sweden, when many, many years back, decades ago, he said that when we bring, like kids into this world, we make a very selfish decision. And that was the very first time that I ever heard someone, like talk about this like that. And that was like, goodness me, this guy is right. That's actually really, really selfish if you think about it. That was just after, the Balkan War. And we worked together, right, in an office that was overseeing some restoration work, in the Balkans after the Balkans conflict, between Serbia and Croatia and what was the third country, you know, uh, Bosnia. So we're talking about the 2000s, I believe it was. I'm not entirely sure, but anyways, yeah. So here we are. So that is the reason, really. That is the only reason, because I know that these kids are here and I have a responsibility, and that's it. And that's it, really. And even I needed someone to actually warn me of that. Because the pain, like felt over this betrayal, the way my wife betrayed me repeatedly. It wasn't just one, it was several. Some of it actually took, place over the years, throughout the years. It was so bloody painful that I just, I just felt that I cannot cope with this. And someone else had to kind of like talk sense, to me, into me. And this guy actually also almost, he actually he actually hung himself, but he didn't do it right. So although he passed out and everything and all that, but he actually woke up on the floor. But he almost managed. So yeah, Yeah, so that is my lengthy explanation of why I am not doing myself in, although it that would be the easiest. That would be the easiest by far. But that's why I just have to kind of like clench my teeth and just get through this. However, I have to get through this. And I have to. And I only hope that one day, my kids will understand, like what I have been through, what happened. And then they will kind of like, we will kind of like stay close. I only hope, because I know that my kids love me. I know that. I know that. And I don't even want to think about, how and what they might think about the situation that I'm not there with them. And again, I'm telling you, I genuinely do not know. I think it's going to be an absolute divine miracle if I manage to forgive my wife, for this. Because I don't find anything in me, that in myself, anything really. I don't find anything, that maybe this one thing, that she has been affected by what happened. And I genuinely believe that she suffers, from a massive, massive Stockholm syndrome. That's what I think. That's what I think. But again, that one is not a justification, because what she has done throughout the years, feeding, like leaking all this information out to people who do not see the whole context of it, and especially to his brother, to her brother. That was really, really nasty. That was really nasty. That was really nasty. That was a really nasty thing to do. Maybe back then, obviously she didn't know what she was doing. Obviously she didn't know that this would, like happen. Obviously, but again, that part, that actually I made it a condition, because this is exactly what I never wanted to happen. This is exactly, she actually became everything I always wanted to avoid. She became everything I always wanted to avoid ever since, my first marriage, went down the drains. And she made my worst fears to come true. That is the state of affairs, really. That is what is the situation. That's what the situation is right now. So again, I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know. But again, and I was actually, I got, like out, the bail conditions, the number one bail condition is that I do not contact her, even not even via a third party. And she could contact me if she wanted to, but she never did. Nobody ever, came to me and told me that, listen, if you come to this park and everything, there will be a few friends, a blah blah or whatever, and we are going to meet you there. What I could do, obviously, if I played nice, probably, social services might allow me, to see them or whatever, or they might not. But I'm unfortunately, I'm over this, because what they have done to us, I don't think that I could control myself and not tell them exactly, who they are and what they are and what they were doing and what they are doing, and knowing, how narcissistic, these people are, you know it's like, I don't think, it would be very advantageous to me. I really have the feeling that they would only just use it, to ruin me even further. These are nasty, nasty, nasty people, and they don't even know it. And that's the most tragic about the whole thing. They don't even know it, and the stigma, will stay there, stay on them for as long as they live, even after they retire. Everybody in their street knows that, this person, this witch, that harpy, that hyena worked for social services, and they know it. And I wouldn't vouch, for these people if there was some sort of a social unrest or something. these people are so hated by the average person that it's on a different scale. Politicians are not hated as much as these people are. They absolutely despise them and they hate them, and for a very good reason. A very good reason. I myself, can testify of how horrible they can be. And the most wonderful thing about it is that they are so convinced that they were only trying to do good. They were only trying to help, while they were absolutely bossing you around and absolutely traumatize you. And they just dismiss the whole thing with well, we just try to help. It's like, goodness me. It's like seriously, these people should be shoved in a concentration camp and re-educated, and just shown some video, or maybe some role play or something, so the same thing happens to them what they have caused to other people. So actually it actually, so the penny bloody drops in their head, so they understand what they are actually doing. Because I think these people, because they are so invincible, so untouchable, because of that, they just don't appreciate, they don't understand what they are doing. I genuinely believe they do not know what they are doing to other people. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there are some people who do. Like, there are sadistic people, but I don't think these people are sadistic, all of them. I mean, I don't think there are this many sadistic people. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Again, I'm not one of them. I don't know how, I don't know what is happening in their head. But anyways, I really talk too much. I hope you appreciate, you understand. I just recorded this for the record. That is my reasoning. That is my justification for not doing myself in, really. Yeah. Every bloody day is a struggle right now, unfortunately. And the what is it called, the frequency of these whatever they are, panic attacks, whatever they are, it's increasing. But the way I can deal with them is getting kind of like easier and easier. I'm not saying that it's any easier for me. The way I can deal with them is easier, but they're getting more frequent. And as the time is approaching, when I have to answer bail or whatever this thing is called, I'm getting a bit more and more. And also that I have to empty the house, where we were supposed to move out and everything. And I don't even, because of what my wife has done, I'm back down to square. What is it called? Square one. My normal, like universal credit money didn't arrive. Yeah. So I'm behind, with the rent. I'm behind with everything. I have no money whatsoever. I'm £1,000 overdraft. Yeah. And in order to restart the whole thing, which only probably, I don't even know, which might only arrive, like a month after, I have no idea. I have to deal with these things, which I already couldn't deal with even before this happened, because of PTSD, because of what social services have done to us. Yeah. I already, like, I have been diagnosed on 2 different occasions with PTSD, with a bad case of PTSD, just by the GPs. I haven't even gone to a proper, psychologist. Yeah. And now I have to go to the, what is it called? To the electricity company, the water, and the gas. And I have to, well, the real estate people, they promised me that they would send me an email with the attachment in it as well. So maybe that's going to happen. And then I have to start this whole bloody, process all over again. Which when we did it the first time, it was quite demanding, to be honest. Anyways, so that's where I am right now. Yeah. That's it. Thank you. Bye.